All right, it looks like we are live. Welcome everybody to Project SIP episode 14. As you may have known, we planned to discuss the presidential debate. And as things unfolded, it turned out to be that there was two separate town hall meetings. That changed our plans up a little bit, but before we go too far into that, I'd like to introduce our two newest panelists. Anna Salguero, would you like to take a moment and say a little bit about yourself? Tell the people your political leanings and how you came to be here.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, my name's Anna, and I am at heart conservative, but my political stand is very more democratic on that side. People should have the right to do what they want. And I'm here because one of my friends invited me, so I had seen a few of the videos before, and I thought it would be a really cool thing to join.
Thank you for joining us. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. And Joseph Bart, same questions. Would you give us a little bit of a sense of your political leanings and background and how you came to be here?
Well, I'm not from the States, as you can probably tell from the way I talk. I'm in the UK. I've been a good friend of yourselves, of Jake and Hannah, for a little while. Got invited by them. I just thought it would be interesting to talk with you guys and see how my views differ from maybe the majority view that you get over there in the States. My political views, the political compass in the UK is quite different to that in the States. So I'm not sure what terminology I'll be getting into, but I'm sure by the end of this debate, anybody interested will know where I stand on most of these things.
Are you more for the Labour Party or for the Conservative Party?
That's a complicated question. That's for another time.
Well, thank you for staying up. I know it's late there, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We had an interesting debate tonight between the candidates. I think it's the first time. It is definitely the first time I've ever noticed something quite like this happening, with the president refusing to partake in a virtual town hall and subsequently running his own competing town hall meeting. So it'll be, I'm sure, something we hear about in the news, who got better ratings. But for the time being, and to cover everything, we split our panelists into two groups and had one group watch each candidate. And so I'd like to give both of our two groups a chance to just give an overarching sense of what did you think of the candidate, both in this debate, and how were they different from their previous debate. And I would like to start by handing this off to Kylan, who I believe you watched the Trump debate, right? Or
yes.
Town hall.
Yeah, it was definitely very interesting. A couple key takeaways, I think for me, and some things that we caught of is, he was very defensive. It seemed like he almost felt like he was behind, and that, he needed to be aggressive to defend his policies and defend himself. And, to me, similarly to the vice presidential debate, it took a lot of prodding to get him to directly answer questions, but hats off to Savannah Guthrie for really giving it, some of the best efforts that I've seen out of any moderator.
Excellent. That was going to be my follow-up question, was how did you feel that Samantha Guthrie handled the situation, given the tall order that that the task was?
Yeah, it was a tall order, but I thought Savannah Guthrie was strong, as I was watching it live. Savannah. I thought when I was watching live on my way home, I was like, I didn't think she was as strong as I had thought. But then after kind of thinking about it and watching the rest of it, and I'm like, you know what? She actually did press him quite a bit and to jump in and to ask for clarification and to hold him accountable. It was actually, quite a good job.
I'm impressed. I saw little bits of what she did, and I thought she was so startlingly on point, especially given again the inherent difficulty of reining him in. On the other side, Tyler, I believe you watched Biden's town hall. Is that right? Muted.
I watched Trump and then I watched
Oh.
Biden.
Okay, my mistake. Sham, I think I had that backwards. Would you like to tell us what you thought of Biden and
Yeah.
how he performed compared to the previous debate?
I mean, I feel like even comparing the two is sort of not even worth it, just because the previous debate he was constantly interrupted by a rude, unhinged, although he's even more unhinged now, Trump. So I think what we saw in this town hall was someone who is experienced, wise, who can admit his mistakes in the past after serving so long in public life, who actually has a plan, who has policies, who has a vision for the future, especially being that he's older. He doesn't seem out of touch with the current trajectory of everything from technology to just cultural issues and social issues. And it just, his genuine kindness, I feel like, I mean, just the fact that he, after 2 hours straight of talking, he still stayed there answering more questions. The way he, the one standout moment was, and it says a lot about him, was that gentleman who mentioned his father had served in the Reagan administration, and you could just see Biden immediately with like, oh, I knew who he was, right? Someone who like 35 some years ago, and he still knew that. That's a testament to his character in terms of what a caring person he is. There's a genuineness, and he made it about policy. He made it about solutions, as opposed to Trump, who is just a narcissist, self-absorbed, and he just rambled on and on about just random nonsense that does no policy whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, keep focusing it on Biden. I think that another thing was that his the fact that people will talk about him not being as energetic and whatnot, completely false. I mean, he was calm, collected. I think that the issue is like Trump is so like depraved and angry that it creates a weird contrast in energy level. But Biden he just came off so much like a president, like what you would want a president to be. So yeah, that's my thought.
Can I add something to that?
Please do. Yes.
I feel as he's kind of a beacon of hope right now, because we're so used to the last 4 years having someone who will scream over you, speak poorly of you, make lies. And here he is, as my colleague mentioned, someone who's willing to admit their mistakes, which is something in the last 4 years Trump hasn't done. Biden at one point was asked, were you wrong? And he just said, yeah, I was wrong. And it's really refreshing, because we all know in Washington, no one wants to admit they're wrong. It's somebody else's fault. But the fact that he straight said, yeah, it is my fault, I'll take responsibility. What I did was wrong. This is why I did it. The situations have changed, and this is how we can rectify that. I thought that was phenomenal. And it definitely speaks presidential level, not I'm worried about the ratings.
I think that you're right, and I think it's kind of an interesting turn that he ran under Obama on the platform of hope, and now it's seeming like he really does get to fulfill that role. I want to talk about how Trump is often talked about. It's often put forth that he does these aggressive things, talking over people, interrupting, and his general demeanor as displays of strength. So I'm curious, to everybody today, what do you think were the best displays of strength shown tonight? Not just by Trump, but across the board.
Trump is void of any show of strength, just point blank. Besides just wanting to be a wannabe strongman, that's like a throwback to early 20th century dictators, and he's not even good at that, which is ironic. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sham. I mean, his attitude was more in line with somebody who's increasingly desperate, increasingly deranged, and increasingly feeling the walls closing in around him. I don't think he really had any strength to show.
I would add one thing just real quick. Biden has so many quotes tonight that it's like if you read them without any context, you're like, oh yeah, a president had said that in the past. Like it literally, if you read those quotes, you're like, oh yeah, that's something a president would have said at some point in, just taking different sound bites from previous presidents, as opposed to Trump, who can't even form a coherent sentence.
Vlad, let's get you in on this.
Thanks, Jake. So I think one of the biggest shows of real strength from Joe Biden was his ability to show kind of humility, and he at one point admitted that he's been wrong in the past, and that in itself is huge. Like, you want a leader who can be accountable for their past mistakes. And then I thought the interesting question that was posed was, what would Joe Biden do if he were to lose this election? And he actually had some form of plan for what he might do in the unlikely event that he actually does lose. He'll go back to teaching, go back to trying to improve the world through education by teaching integrity and honesty and things like that. I think if you'd asked the same question of Donald Trump, he would have turned around and just said, well, I'm not going to lose. And then he wouldn't even approach the hypothetical scenario, which I think is, a sign of weakness and a sign of narcissism. I think one of the other things that Biden did that was huge, at least for me, when he was asked about his tax plan, he busted out the little card that had actual numbers and actual data that he can talk to, and he can say, under my tax plan, there's going to be, this much of an increase in the corporate tax that's going to bring in revenue. It's not going to increase taxes on you potentially, unless you're a billionaire or make, an X amount of dollars. So I think coming to this type of town hall with facts and with humility, I think is a testament to, how strong Biden is and how strong he would be, how strong of a leader he actually will be.
It's great that you mentioned the note card, because I think after the past couple of days with Amy Coney Barrett getting some internet notoriety for coming completely without any notes written, it was kind of a subtle and fantastic move for him to show not only well-written notes, but well utilized too. Anna, you were looking to jump in here.
Yeah, I just wanted to revisit what was said about he has some really powerful quotes. And a few of the things that stood out to me was when he said, power by our example. And that just hit me. Everything he had said prior to that was, America first, no, America alone. It's just those little quotes to me that turn around and say, you're right. We used to be, the beacon of hope across the world, and now it does feel like we're alone. And that specifically that quote where he said, "Power by our example," or something like that, just really made me think about the way that I was brought up. It really resonated with me and the way I grew up. I'm the oldest of four in an immigrant family, first generation right here, and my mom used to say that to me all the time. Tus hermanos van a seguir tu ejemplo. Your siblings will follow your example. So that really, really, I feel, touched me. And I think that touched the Hispanic vote, because that's how that's our culture. That's how we're brought up.
Thank you for sharing that. That was excellent. I totally agree. And I from my own experience, I know that I follow the example of my brother. It's interesting seeing how real that can play out. We had a question from one of our panelists, and I'm gonna hand this off to Tyler. Do you think that Biden looking up at the person asking the question was a better choice than looking directly into the camera, at the American people?
Yes, because it makes that voter feel like it's about them. It also shows to the American people that he's concerned about that particular person. That person asked him a very personal question that came from them, and he's directing it back at them. One of the things that I noticed when I watched both, because I watched most of Trump's and then part of Biden's, is that Joe Biden kept his attention at the person that asked the question. While Trump, his attention started there, but then it moved all over the place, and then it moved back to Savannah, and then it moved here, and then it moved back to Savannah. But he didn't stay with that person. There were points that, in my opinion, that Trump did very well in his town hall, but that was one thing that was definitely lacking compared to Joe Biden, in that he actually showed empathy toward the person who was asking a question and making sure the attention was directed at them.
Since you said it, I'm curious, what do you think Trump did well?
I do think he did bring up some good questions about some of the inconsistencies that Joe Biden has, but that's with any elector, any politician. They do have inconsistencies. And Trump loves to play into that. Although, as we've said, some of the ways in which he likes to point out some inconsistencies or they can be perceived as very incoherent. And unfortunately, when we're talking about the leader of the free world, or I mean, at least we used to be called the leader of the free world, he doesn't show that. He doesn't make that perception known and felt by others around him.
I feel like, to add to that point, there's this unfair sort of criteria of judgment with Trump versus Biden, where it's like Biden has to be like fully presidential in all ways in terms of quotes and everything that he says. And Trump essentially, just as long as he doesn't shit on the floor, is like, oh, like he did okay, right? Like he spoke in a coherent sentence like 1 out of every 20. And not to critique what you're saying, Tyler, like I get the point that, like, of course he, like, Trump is a decent debater when he's not completely drugged up on steroids and Adderall, who knows what else. But like still, even regardless, there's like this funny unfair criteria of judgment. Has always been the case where it's like, oh yeah, no, like as long as he just literally doesn't just like shit on the floor, he did okay. And it's funny because even that he screws up, he screwed that up last debate and this time.
And I don't think that he did just the bare minimum, because he did bring in his talking points. He made sure he got a lot of the rights, the conservatives talking points out there that not only drums up the base, but does win over some of the independent voters. And we need to be aware of that. There are other ideologies out there. It's not just one thing for people. It might be other things. And yeah, I don't like how he talks to women, but he definitely has my ideals when it comes to DACA and immigration policy and things like that. And so when he talks about how we have the borders closed, yes, we have the borders closed. You don't understand that everybody has their borders closed to us as well. But the borders are closed. He actually has done a campaign promise for that.
Hannah, it's been a little while. Can we get you in here?
Yeah. What I wanted to share was, and I watched the Biden town hall. As far as where he showed power, or where I felt that he was very strong, was his willingness to include people that are experts in their field or the specific people relating to the topics at hand in the decision-making process and the planning of how to resolve issues that are affecting them. I really appreciated that willingness to speak to including social workers and psychologists in relation to education and into policing. And then I think he also did well with that specific detail on the Supreme Court in regarding to electing a Supreme Court justice, that he was wanting people to focus really on process, pay attention to what's happening right now. Yes, it's important for me to communicate what he would do next. And he says he's going to tell people before Election Day. So I personally am fine with that timing, because for once, it's really refreshing to hear someone speak to redirecting people back to what is currently happening. What is the process? Is it being followed? what are the options currently? Are we all just throwing in the hat that it's decision made? I think there's value to that, and he's putting his knowledge about law and how order and government works. He's showing his willingness to follow that and give respect and space for it by not overstepping it with changing stories, moving the story to a different direction without really giving due time to pay attention to what's going on.
Thank you. I think that you might have said that better than I could have. I think really like that. Kylan was going to take a question that we had from yet another panelist, as well as I think you wanted to jump in here. Do you think that Savannah handled 46-1 well? 46-1 meaning Trump.
Yeah, as I kind of alluded to, you know, as we began the broadcast, I think Savannah did a very good job. At first, I thought that she didn't press enough, but really, you know, in hindsight, and after really like digesting the town hall, I actually thought that she did a pretty good job of testing him. She, you know, anytime you're trying to moderate Trump, you know, that's a tall glass of water to have to drink. But for the hand that she had to deal with, I thought that she followed up with follow-up questions well. I also think that she pressed him with specifics and brought certain receipts. And so I thought that she really did force his hand to get him to chime in more than he wanted to, and actually had to get away from those talking points. So with that, I thought that she did well. Really just expand on the point that I was going to make. When I was fortunate enough to be able to catch the last 20 minutes of Biden's debate, and I contrasted that, you know, with what I saw in the entirety from the Trump town hall. And you know, one thing that came to mind was the empathy that Joe Biden showed. You know, there was a question that Stephanopoulos talked about, you know, would you, you know, accept the results of the election if you lost, and how would you help with the transition? And you know, of course, he said that, you know, he doesn't feel very confident that if the situation was reversed, that Trump would do that for obvious reasons. But what Biden said is, you know, it would be his hope that, you know, even if he lost, you know, it would be, you know, not just because he was a bad candidate, but you know, he had hoped the country wasn't voting for Trump to reelect him based on religious divisions or other divisions of anger. You know, even at that point, he was empathetic and wanting to unite the country, and he highlighted that in a very succinct way and a very powerful way to me. When Trump was just all over the place, defensive, angry, not answering questions, and you know, really instead of answering questions, he spent more time hyping up his properties and talking about an economy when there were voters asking about, you know, hospitals not having enough gear, people, you know, having economic hardship, and all he did was talk about how great the economy was and how great people were doing, and didn't address the question as it pertained to pain and grief and loss, you know, because he doesn't have that empathy. He doesn't have that level of personal understanding that I think Biden was very successful at showing.
I think just the fact that we're discussing two separate town halls is so outrageous, because like just the fact that Trump backed out of this town hall because of his bullshit reasons, and then NBC gives him a time slot which is absolutely ridiculous. Thankfully, the moderator actually pressed him, Kylan, as you pointed out. But just the fact that this guy is so corrupt and such a cheat that he would do this, and then on top of all that, all day he was talking about how it's a fake town. Like not only did he get this time slot on national TV that gives him exposure and all that stuff, so he gets fair airtime and all that, they start bashing NBC, and now everyone on the idiots on the right are already, it was a hit job, and they went after Trump and all this. And it's like, removing the fact that this shouldn't even happen in the first place. It should have been a town hall debate between the two presidential candidates, but this corrupt, lying, used car salesman basically cheated his way into getting this extra time slot, and then on top of that, like flipped it around and tried to spin it as if they're out to get him again, because all he does is whine and complain and victimize himself. So just, I mean, I feel like that's overlooked. Was kind of my point. That like, yes, he was asking questions and all that, but it's so overlooked that just the entire premise is absolutely outrageous.
I love your energy, Sham. I think we all do. Thank you for joining us. It's fun to have you back.
Not a dose of Trump's given every day to prop him up out there on stage.
So Hannah, you had a follow-up question from our good friend Daniel. He's curious whether you think that the candidates were focusing more on swing voters or more on consolidating their bases.
Well, Biden was the only view that I saw. From what I can figure of what I saw, it felt like he was trying to clarify his position on all the things, and more specifically give details as to why, what basis those things have for him personally, like his specific passion about the subjects, making that feel real and alive. And I think in regards to swing voters, I think this was important for them to hear so they could determine, is there anything else about this candidate that I didn't know about this position that some of this backstory would help with. So, and I also think that he, worked on if someone was in a swing position, kind of like what's in it for them? Like, what is he going to do to support the people that don't vote for him? And to what extent is he willing to go on that? I think his comment on being president first versus prioritizing, his party first was is significant for any candidate to really communicate, because that tells me that he's willing to look out for people that aren't totally sure about him.
So then it sounds like you feel like he was kind of doing a little bit of both.
Yeah, I don't know if it was intentional. I just think that he was clarifying it so people could figure that out for themselves of if he was worth voting for. And I think by digging into what he really thinks and feels and will do in office, he solidified his base.
So as a follow-up to that, how do you feel he handled the question from the young black man asking if Biden deserved the black vote?
Will you say the first part of that?
How do you feel that Biden handled that question? Was that more, did he do a good job explaining his position to a disenfranchised population? Did he broaden his base there?
So I came in at about 5:18, so it was kind of in the middle of that gentleman communicating his question. The gist that I got from Biden was he was really prioritizing the subject of generating wealth and empowering Black voters to be able to do more and be supported to do more and to thrive. And so I think that it's clear that he wanted to. I think that he was showing support for these voters, but I think he maybe got off topic in some ways about that. Like it didn't feel like the gentleman that asked the question was satisfied with the answer, and I wonder if I missed part of the question or if Biden just didn't address part of it.
I do think though that question, yeah, he did seem to get a little off topic, but he hit he went to the root problem that's so overlooked. So rather than just say kind of like the usual platitudes that politicians say, or just the nonsense, complete delusional stuff that Trump rambles on about, he actually got to a major issue that's not talked about enough, about the inequalities in terms of intergenerational wealth when it comes to real estate ownership. And he went even further to break down the differences in terms of property value, the differences. Like he went so intricate that I almost feel like that young gentleman, it wasn't so much that he wasn't satisfied. I think he was just like, dude, he wasn't even expecting that. So I agree, he kind of did go off on a tangent. But what he did do was cover a topic that's so overlooked, because usually like, you know, that topic is so, there's just usually like cliche platitudes given, and he really went deep on that. So I think that was an important approach. But I agree, he did kind of trail off a little.
It seemed like he got at least.
I agree.
Go ahead. Sorry.
He really did, like you said, speak to the core problem. And I think what might be shocking for people listening to it is the depth of details that's available for that. And perhaps it's just, you know, it's so potent and real to sit with that I feel like even more time maybe was needed on just bringing everybody to the same reality.
Also, I just have to throw in, just for contrast, while Biden was giving very specific numbers, policies, strategies to fix this problem, what does Trump do? Similar topic. He basically claims he's done the most for the African American community since Lincoln. Like just he didn't even say since Lincoln. He said except Lincoln. So he did correct himself. He's capable of a little self-correction. I mean, just the fact that that's like, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I just wanted to throw that out there, because that's also an overlooked thing, that Biden was giving actual detail, like detail to the point of like, dude, how do you know this stuff? Whereas Trump just basically said, well, I've done more for the, you know, for black people than Lincoln, like since Lincoln. Anyways, sorry.
Before we move on, I'd really like to hear anything, Tyler, Kylan, if you have any input here, I'd love to hear it.
Kylan, do you want to start?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Preface the question to me again, so let me get lathered up.
I'm curious how you felt Biden handled the question from the young black man asking if Biden deserved the black vote, given the length of disenfranchisement and horrible treatment that they've had for forever.
I would love to address that question. I didn't actually get a chance to see Biden answer that question. I can elaborate on my thoughts overall, but I would love for Tyler to take that actually.
So I did see a part of that gentleman's question. I didn't see the beginning of it, but the fact Trump didn't really answer the question. He did say that unemployment for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians were the lowest that they've been in a generation. True, great, cool. What is it now? What are we going through as a country now? Not just minorities, but just everybody. What are we all going through right now? The part that I saw from Biden in terms of answering the question, he did bring in, as Sham said, that could be a problem, but I kind of feel mixed about that, because there are also very successful African Americans out there, and they still feel like they can't go out to places, or if they get pulled over, they have problems. I say that as a person of privilege in a very, I wouldn't necessarily say affluent area, but at least a nice suburban area in California. And I'm African American. I live in a place of at least great wealth, but I feel the same way that somebody who makes millions of dollars, like our athletes out there, our CEOs out there, the company owners out there that are African American, Hispanic, or Asian, as the same as the people below us who don't make what we make, that have to struggle to make a dollar. So I mean, it's not just about the people that are down below us that are impoverished, because that's across the racial scale, if that's a way to look at it. But I would just say it's all of us. We all are having issues with everything there, and we all be addressed.
Carlin, you wanted to still respond to this, right?
Yeah,
Thank you, Tyler, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, that was definitely a great take, and I feel Tyler's the same pain and the same anxiety. Things I have to do when I wake up in the morning, mental checklist that I have to go over about my tone of voice, my posture, am I too threatening? When an African American mother during Trump's town hall asked Trump, saying that she was a high school teacher, and she talked to Black and Latino about are they going to be in danger? Is her son going to be in danger? It struck me that he did not speak to that. He did not speak to that anxiety. He did not speak. He did not speak to that pain. He did not speak to her feelings at all. And he just pivoted again to, nobody's better than me, maybe except Lincoln. And just as someone who knows what that anxiety feels like, I think that should have been addressed. I think, it just I hate to belay the fact, but he does not have the empathy or the wherewithal to see things from another person's perspective unless it's his own or somebody in his family or maybe Ivanka in a tight dress. Maybe then he'll think, you know, maybe then he'll think something beyond himself. I don't know. But, you know, people across this country are hurting. People across this country have anxiety. People across this country are in need, and he needs to speak to that need. And so that's what I have on that.
I just want to add something really quick. I think the issue is that we've normalized that minorities don't have wealth. You know, we see people of color and we're like, oh, you sell drugs. What do you do? And I've lived that. I moved to North Carolina. My parents bought a house in the suburbs and people came up, hi, do you guys rent this property? No, we bought it. I purchased my first home and I was I went and I looked at my home and I told the tenant, hey, this is how I want you to keep up the lawn. Let me help you. The tenant went inside. One of the neighbors came out. Oh, how much do you charge? Excuse me, how much do I charge for what? Um, for mowing the lawn? This is my home. You know, I purchased this home. I'm renting it out. So I think we've normalized the fact that minorities of Blacks, Hispanics, whatever, don't have wealth. And I think that's the true issue. And I think that's what Biden was trying to say is that we need to get everyone to the same level. It's not fair that we haven't been able to pass on this wealth. I'm very fortunate. My mom and my dad and myself came to the US as immigrants. We're refugees. And to be at the point that we're at now, it was not without tears, to be honest. You know, where I'm told, hey, you're Hispanic, you should do what your people are known for and clean houses. And then be in front of my house and be told, how much do you charge for mowing the lawn? I think we've normalized the fact that minorities don't have wealth. And that's a huge issue because then that's when we become targets. When someone's driving a really nice car, they get pulled over. Why? Because we've normalized the fact that that race shouldn't have a nice car. That's an issue.
I nailed it. Thank you for the anecdote. And I think that, you know, keeping minorities in a lack of wealth state with the general being poor is bad is got to be one of the most toxic pairings in like American history. And I'm sorry that you had to get that nonsense. That's horrible.
You know, and it's not just the being poor is bad. It's also when you're working hard to get out of the ghetto, the hood, whatever you want to address it as or call it. Getting out is when then you're told you're not Hispanic enough or Black enough or Asian enough. You're whitewashed. It's like, excuse me, no, I'm not. I'm just educated. I can speak. Thank you. I earned my bachelor's, my master's. I'm not white. I'm just an educated Hispanic woman. These are issues that I think indirectly Biden, by saying we need to get wealth passed on from generation to generation, indirectly he's opened this conversation that we're having now. That's so crucial for myself, for my future children, for my future grandchildren, and for anyone, not just minorities. but even people that are white, they need to have this conversation. They need to know that this is what the African American community has been going through since the beginning of this country. This is what we've been going through since, you know, since forever. So I think that small, you know, if you purchase a home in your Black neighborhood, it's 29%. The value is 29% less than someone across the street in a white neighborhood. That's a huge issue.
This has been a really excellent section of the conversation, and I'd like to just pause and say I think this might be the most important part of what we talked about tonight, and I appreciate everybody who's put in. Joseph, you've been waiting really patiently. We'd love to get your voice in here a little bit more.
Thank you. Just double checking, are we still answering a question from an audience member, or have we moved on from that now?
You are welcome to respond however you would like. You can speak to what we have been talking about, or to the audience question, or to what the topic was before, but honestly,
well, because after what Anna was talking about, it actually gave me a couple of more points I'd like to cover, I think. But so I've only watched Trump's town hall, and first of all, really, it's interesting to me that whatever, as a foreigner, of course, somebody who's not in the States, I've only seen this stuff from the outside, even though we've got all of our shit happening at the moment. There's a lot of talk about trying to compare Trump to Biden, and to talk of like, oh, well, how did they stand up? How did they answer the questions? That's been going on since even before the election in 2016. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that it seems people are very willing to give Trump every excuse they can for why he's a terrible public speaker. But it seems that his habits and mannerisms never change. But all the time, it seems, I think someone, I can't remember, might have been Tyler Wright at the very beginning. It's like, or might even been Shami, I think, that it's almost as if he can say even one word without stumbling over it, or someone said, I think if he does, as long as he doesn't actually shit on the floor, people are going to say, wow, he's so presidential, you know. But, and I can't help but think, you know, to say, well, where's the fucking bar? You know, that's what you're going to be talking about.
We buried it. We buried it a long time ago.
We buried it in 2017.
The interesting thing to me is that when people are saying, you know, oh, is he trying to get swing voters, trying to talk to his base or anything like that? But it's very interesting that it seems that the more you're trying to actually look for truth in the way Trump speaks, the less you find. And that's something that is a very old rhetorical trick. Like we're talking OG, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, like Cicero wrote about the same thing, you know, about how he talks always in empty phrases, empty sentences. So that means that no matter what position you are here, you actually hold, if you're listening to him talk, your brain will fill in with your biases everything that you want to hear. So that's an incredibly old-fashioned rhetorical trick that's been used by politicians for literally millennia. And
thank you for saying that.
Trump is very good at that, and we're seeing the same thing in the UK now as well. We have for a very long time. So Boris Johnson can only talk like that. I don't think it's possible for him to even speak in good faith anymore. That's a problem that talking like that does. So, for example, at the very beginning of the town hall, they were first talking about Trump's treatment for coronavirus. And Savannah was asking him, I think 2 or 3 times, like whether he had pneumonia. And if you were listening very carefully in the middle of the ramble that Trump was talking about, he said, right in the middle, he said, oh, my lungs are a little bit different, perhaps a little bit infected.
Oh.
Which is the definition of pneumonia.
Yeah, pneumonia.
You know, so that's what he was saying. Or
So
For
Joseph, we had
example,
a question from one of our panelists for you directly.
Oh yeah.
And he's curious, what do you think about the idea that we're not grading Trump by the metric of being a good debater, but whether he's succeeding in pushing his message to the people he wants to reach? And by that metric, is he successful?
Well, again, it depends what you're trying to say. So the message that he doesn't have a message. Is my answer to my direct answer to that is that he's talking a lot and he's wanting the audience to agree with him, but he wants, or should I say, what I'm trying to get at is the way that he talks and the way that it sounds like nobody speaks like Trump genuinely in good faith in real life is the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Incoherently.
He can, yes, but that's not, but what I'm trying to say is that that's an engineered action. That's something he's doing deliberately. That's a way that you can teach somebody to talk in front of a camera. Yeah. Whether he's done it, whether he can only speak like that now because he's never had a conversation in good faith in his entire life is a separate thing. But what I'm saying is that it's something that can be taught. So when people are talking about trying to get his message to his audience, the message is, I'm going to speak and leave gaps that your brain is going to fill in without even having to think about it. So, for example, where he's, what was he talking about? He, in talking about the rate of infections going up, he says America is rounding the corner. It's like, no, it fucking isn't. Their cases are up 23% in the last 2 weeks. What the fuck that's supposed to be?
I appreciate
we've given you the greatest tax cuts in the history of our country. Well, no, it isn't. Reagan was the greatest tax cut in 1981. Obama cut $321 billion a year if you adjust for inflation. So, I don't know.
That's what we all said for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you bringing up his speech mechanism.
I do have some issue with this notion. Like, I agree that, like, yes, Trump speaks at a very dumbed down, watered down level, but I don't think it's some brilliant political strategy. I think he's just that much of an imbecile, and I think that his base is that stupid that it resonates with them. I mean, let's simply
right, but it's you can say that it's all stupidity, say that it's like that, but it's always in the right direction. Yeah. So, for example, he's talking about when he was talking about the threat from China. Yeah. For one thing, China, the WHO said to have a lockdown on all of these things that America didn't listen to. This is way back in February, right? So the idea that the threat was from China, things like that, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it originated in China from pangolins. We know that. He still keeps talking about it being a conspiracy, which is just racist bollocks. There's no other way to talk about it. But for example, in the town hall, when the Savannah was asking him about it being a threat, back to back, the two things he says was, I knew it was a threat, but nobody told him anything in the White House. Yeah. And it's always like that. It's like saying, so I know that the solution to the problem, but everybody in the White House is against me. It's always in that order. And it is saying literally without taking a breath between saying these things. So, for example, he's got, we went into the ventilator business. We've got many stories of masks. 85% of people who wear masks catch COVID. What the fuck is he talking about? And then saying that one of the doctors that says not to wear masks, one of the greatest experts of the world. What the fuck does that mean? As if we're all sitting in the ivory tower. By the way, I'm a professional microbiologist, just in case it's saying to all people don't know I'm talking about we. And it's interesting. So you can say, yes, he is an idiot. I'm not saying he isn't an idiot, but he's a pernicious idiot. And I think people need to stop giving him credit for speaking a full sentence when all of the sentences he's talking about are encouraging the violent to be more violent and encouraging the prejudiced to be more prejudiced. It's, you know, if he was an idiot, if he was a benign idiot, at least he'd make half of the mistakes in the other direction. But when all of the things he's fucking up on, when someone's fucking up all the time, but they're always fucking up in the direction of evil, then you've got to think, well, okay, he's an idiot, but where are his motives? You know?
Very good point.
I think we're going to need a moment of silence here because
Anyway,
Joseph
I
just
think I'm right.
slayed Trump.
No, that's so brilliant. You
Anyway, I'm going to have some more whiskey. You guys carry on.
So we're going to move on a little bit. We had a question for Vlad, and Vlad has been waiting to get in here. What was your favorite part of the Biden town hall, and do you think there were any did he miss any opportunities?
So before I talk about my favorite thing, I actually wanted to touch on two things that Joseph just said. So the first one is, Joseph, you asked kind of where's the bar? And from what I've seen in the last, not even the last 4 years, I mean, the last 4 years has just been a colossal shit show. From what I've seen in the last, I would say, throughout the entirety of the Obama administration as well, even before that, is that the bar is placed in incredibly different places depending on which party you belong to. Mm-hmm. I believe, when you look at what's happened recently. I mean, you had Al Franken basically get thrown out of the Senate, and at the same time, you've got the Republican Party out there running Roy Moore in Alabama, who is actually a child predator. You've got the Republican Party out there saying that Trump is a strong family man, where he's got 5 kids by 3 different women, and he has affairs with porn stars. Like, come on. Give me a break, man. The bar for Republicans is in my toilet, and the bar for Democrats is somehow like 30 feet sky high. Like, yeah, it's Harvard. Like, so, this notion that, a successful Trump speech is him just not walking out on stage, taking a shit and throwing it in the first row it's crap, man. We need to get back to a point where, people actually care. And there's actually intelligence on both sides of the aisle, and I kind of feel like we're heading down to the level of idiocracy, where if for those of us who've seen that movie, like, at least that shit was entertaining. What's happening now is downright fucking scary. That's my first point. My second point is, you've got Trump coming out here saying that COVID-19 isn't serious, that people shouldn't be afraid of it, and everything like that, and his supporters are eating this crap up. And they've been eating this crap up forever. And when you've got access to a military fucking helicopter that's going to take you to Walter Reed Hospital, where you're going to get experimental treatment that is not available for anybody else, yeah, no shit, jackass. It's not that serious for you. It is very serious for the people, for average, everyday Americans who come down with COVID, who have symptoms, who try to go to a hospital, and who are sent home because they're not in dire enough straits. So secondly, I'm just going to say this out loud, and I know this is an adult broadcast. Donald Trump, with all due respect, eat a dick.
No due respect. None.
Actually, you're right. With no due respect, eat a dick. Now, moving on to the question that was posed. My favorite part of Biden's town hall was Biden talking about the economy and the K-shaped recovery, as he so calls it, because I agree with him wholeheartedly that we are currently in a K-shaped recovery. Every time Donald Trump speaks about the economy, he speaks about the stock market. And yes, the stock market has recovered, and a lot of people I know, myself included, have been lucky enough to be able to invest a little bit of money when the market was down. So now we're doing a little bit better. However, the market is not indicative of the economy as a whole, because you have stories consistently of companies like Uber and Lyft who lay off workers, and then the very next day you log into whatever financial news outlet you look at, and their stock price is going up. So that's complete horseshit. And right now we are absolutely in a K-shaped recovery. You've got a situation right now where billionaires like Jeff Bezos, like Elon Musk, like the Walton family, are making truckloads of money. billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, while at the same time, millions of people in America are food insecure. They don't know how they're going to make their rent payments. They're in danger of losing their jobs. They're in danger of becoming homeless. They're in danger of losing their health care. So to say the economy is doing well, for who? And I love the fact that Joe Biden addressed that directly today,
Mm-hmm.
because that is something that gets lost, because Trump is really trying to push the narrative that the stock market is the economy, when that's bullshit. The stock market is the economy for the 1%, or the 1/10 of the 1%, because that's how they all get compensated. You got Steve Jobs, when he took over Apple, was making $1 a year in actual salary, but he was making millions in stock options. So that sorry, go
Something
ahead,
like
Jake.
45% of Americans don't own stock. I just did a quick Google for you.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, and the rest of the people who do own stock in that situation, a lot of the people who do own stock in that situation probably own it through a 401k or some sort of individual, like IRA, retirement account. And they're not investing enough money to see a huge difference in their personal economic situation when the market goes up. So to me, that Biden addressing that directly and addressing that K-shaped recovery that sees, the 1% going up while the rest of us are going down, was brilliant. It needed to be done. He came with facts. The card that he took out of his coat pocket, I actually applauded that move on, while sitting in my living room and watching that. Because he came with hard facts. He's not going to just speak about, well, I think it's going to be this and I think it's going to be that. He literally came out and said, no, this is what my economic plan is going to do. Here's the numbers, and that is that. You can try to dispute the policy, but the numbers are there. The analysis is done. So, that was, I feel like that was my favorite part. I think what he missed on, honestly, I can't think of anything really off the top of my head besides maybe hammering Trump on the lack of agreement to a peaceful transfer of power. I think that probably needed to be addressed, but other than that, I think Biden had a strong performance. And with that, I will yield my time to the next person.
Jules, you have been waiting very patiently for a little while as we got sidetracked into really excellent conversation. Can we get you in here now? You're muted.
It's only been a half an hour since I said I wanted to speak. So I don't even recall what I was trying to speak on in the first place. So what was the question, if there was a question?
Let me.
Hey, Jules, if it makes you feel any better, I waited 40 minutes.
Yeah, there's been some great asides. I don't know exactly what question we were on.
Is there anything that you thought Trump did well during his town hall?
Is there anything Trump did well?
Or exceptions?
Well, he made it in an hour, and considering his poor health and his just seething rage and anger and disdain for actual questions is pretty admirable. He was supposed to go for an hour and a half. To my knowledge, he couldn't even make it an hour and a half. He quit after an hour, which he's weak.
How did it get called off?
I
missed that.
I think he probably just had his advisors tell the moderator to cut it off, because she ended up just saying we're gonna wrap it up here, basically. So I don't. Okay. I'm pretty sure something got put down the chain. I don't know. What did he do well? He didn't really do anything well. He was his usual boisterous, dickish self, and he he answered every question with a kind of just random talking points that he's always said. He liked to talk about how it's all China's fault. It's China. But even though he praised China back in March before everything started to get worse, he praised China for their wonderful job. He had a tweet. It aged very poorly, and he probably forgot that he even wrote it. I mean, everything he did, it was just a deflection. And then when he ended, I switched to Biden, and it was like night and fucking day, because you've got Biden actually taking the time to listen to people's questions and answering them thoughtfully, and actually, for the first time, he actually was able to deliver some actual policy details, which he hasn't really had the chance to do yet, which was nice to hear. I'm sure he wanted to during that first debate, but since he got steamrolled by a raving lunatic, it was like, nothing's going to be said that was actually of worth on either side, because Trump, has nothing worthy to say, and Biden was unable to say anything for more than 3 seconds before Trump just started interrupting him nonstop. I mean, this whole thing, though. Here's the interesting thing. While we were all talking, I Googled how many people have already voted. So we've got over 17 million have already voted. This was posted today, 10 hours ago by CNN. So, I mean, ultimately, the amount of people that they're actually pandering to, all these undecided voters. I don't know who the fuck these people are either. It's like you've got one guy who has some brilliant ideas, and he actually takes out cards and he has numbers written down. He knows what the hell he's talking about, and he's been in politics for a long time. He's empathetic and able to talk to people in a coherent way. And then on the other hand, you've got this boisterous, loud buffoon who has no idea what the fuck he's talking about ever. And he just completely and there's some people out there going, I don't know which one we should vote for. Does he like animals? I don't know. I need to hear more from Joe Biden. Like, who the fuck are these people who have no idea what the I don't undecided voters? How are you undecided? Like, either you don't give a shit about the racist buffoon who has no ideas and you're fine with that because he has an R next to his name, or you're going to vote for the other guy who actually gives a shit about everything. How do you not know? I don't get it. I don't understand how there's literally anybody who has no idea what to vote.
I want to interject with 2 quick things. First, Sham has to leave early. So Sham, thank you for jumping in and joining us tonight. It's been really great having you back. It's been a long time.
Let him participate. I missed this, definitely.
Thanks again.
We missed you, Sham.
Definitely.
Thanks, buddy.
Not more. Take care. Great episode.
And Jules, right? And Jules, a bit of a follow-up. We've talked about ways to reform and redesign the debates to kind of lock the candidates into following the rules and behaving themselves. And this was not intentional, but it kind of seems like it gave us a little bit more of an opportunity to hear what each candidate has to say. Do you think this was a beneficial step?
In a way, yeah. I think it was pretty bullshit that they scheduled them at the same time. I think, my understanding is Biden won because all these undecided people, whoever the hell they are, probably had much less of an idea of what Biden wanted to do, and I think he got to state that point. I think at least without, a raging lunatic standing next to you yelling in your face about how everything you're saying is wrong and offering no cohesive argument whatsoever, I think, it gave Biden a really good chance to actually put down what he wanted to say, put down the actual policies he wanted to deliver, and as far as Trump goes, everybody knows what Trump's all about. He's just going to yell about China and, make some random baseless accusations that, once again, he brought up this whole thing about the Obama administration spied on his campaign, which isn't true at all. There's literally no truth to it, but he keeps bringing that up. He calls it the China virus. He praised China before. Like, he's so consistent with his lies. I mean, at least, maybe he actually believes them. I'm not even sure. but to what Joseph was saying, maybe it is that it's kind of actually has a direction, like the way he's speaking. I don't know. I think he kind of might actually be doing that accidentally, because he's just fucking dumb. I think he actually really just, he knows how to speak in a way that are going to get people's attention. I think it's all about narcissism to him. So whatever he can say it to like draw the attention, draw the spotlight back to himself is really what he's trying to do. So he does the same things. He says the same things over and over and over again, and his followers believe it. But I think it's working less and less on people who actually are starting to wonder if any of this is even remotely true. And they're going to find out that it's not. I think
fear.
I mean, he uses fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is
He
what you said.
uses fear.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
who are those that follow him? Those that think they have something to lose. Those that think someone's coming after what they have.
Right. Exactly. I mean, he uses fear tactics. I think he's a guy who's always wanted the spotlight on him. So he's moving from a point where he was a reality television host or center figure, and he looked at all the Fox News stuff, and he saw that everybody's kind of following this stuff, and Fox News is like one of the most widely watched news organizations. It might still be the most watched, but at least several years ago it was the most watched news channel in the country. And I think he saw the fear pandering they were doing, and sort of the conspiratorial bullshit that they were propagating, and he thought to himself, wow, I could get into this. I can make this even more. I can dial it up to 11. I think his motivations are all about like, I want to do the next big thing for myself, whatever is going to make it bigger for me. So I think his politics would have been malleable in a way, because if that had been a left-wing thing, he may have gone extremely left-wing. I don't think he really gives a shit about the actual issues. I think he just gives a shit about how much he can make this about himself, how much he can put himself in the limelight. So yeah, that's kind of what I took away from all of this, is that Trump, everybody knows. Biden, now everybody knows.
Vlad, I think you were looking to jump in here, but we also had a question that I'd like to pitch to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfectly fine.
From Alberto in the comments. Does anybody think that China may have conspired against the US by allowing the virus to spread and getting all the PPE equipment before allowing the World Health Organization to state this as an actual pandemic? Honest question, really means it.
So first off, Alberto, thank you very much for that question. I wanted to address the prior question that you asked, Jake, about this format real quick, and then I'm going to touch on this. So I did like the format when it came to getting questions from voters. I would have liked to see both Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the same space answering the same questions. That said, it might have led to, a bunch more Trump trying to yell and control the situation. So maybe we would need a shock collar or some way to shut off his microphone. But I did like the fact that there was direct interaction between the candidate and the voters. In response to this question, to Alberto's question, I don't. I really don't. I think that is a far-fetched conspiracy theory. I think there's way too many factors involved in trying to get something like that off the ground and trying to keep, people from trying to keep someone at least from spilling the beans, or someone from leaking it, even in China, in a pseudo totalitarian government. If you look at how this pandemic has been handled in other countries, outside, countries that actually trust science and actually listen to science, that, this conspiracy theory just falls apart. I mean, you look at countries across Europe where they shut things down, they listen to their scientists, they force mask mandates and did everything by the book, and now they're reopening and things are going well. And in the U.S., it's it's a shit show. You've got Karens walking through Walmart screaming about how it's their constitutional freedom not to wear masks. Like, come on, give me a break. So, short answer to your question, no. China did not allow this to happen. I think viruses just evolve, and this happens all the time with anything and everything. And it's COVID-19 this year, and 5 years from now it's going to be something else. And we just have to be prepared, and we have to listen to scientists and make the right decisions.
Thank you for fielding that comment question. I'm glad you felt comfortable taking that one. Tyler, I can see you're like ready to go.
I've been holding so much in right now because there's so much that I wanted to say for the last little bit. But going to Alberto's question, China might not have conspired against the US specifically, but they conspired against everybody else because it would affect their image, their pristine image, that they got everything under control within their own borders. And they also didn't probably think it was as bad, or they knew it was as bad as it was, but they didn't want everybody else to know. They could have taken all the PPE and kept it to themselves. I get that. That's cool. They have all the manufacturing. So what can anybody do about that, unfortunately? But I don't necessarily think they conspired against the US specifically. They conspired against the rest of the world, frankly, at that point, if you really want to get into it. Going back to Jules about how could there be independent voters or voters who are undecided? There is more than just the coasts. There are people that are, as I said earlier in this podcast, that do see not only Trump, but his party as the best compares of what they believe in. But they might not like everything else that he's doing, and they like some things that Joe Biden's doing, and vice versa, or whatever you say. English is not.
Both of them are great.
They're both great, right? So, in terms of having any independent voters or having any undecided voters, they can still be out there. As polarized as we are right now, there are still people that are in the middle that cannot decide, and that is okay as long as they vote. I don't care what they do as long as they vote and they don't sit out. They need to get themselves involved in whatever electoral process we have right now, because in 2016 a lot of people did not get involved because they didn't care about either candidate. And now, even if you do or do not care about either kind of candidate right now, we need to vote. Then beyond that, Anna brought up a great point about being a homeowner and everything. I literally am going through a lot of things with my home right now as a person in a predominantly Hispanic and Caucasian neighborhood. It is really fun whenever I had a Caucasian spouse. Everybody thought that they owned the house and I just lived here. And then when they took shit out of my house and skipped town, and I went to my neighbors to ask, hey, did you hear anything? They thought they owned the house and I was going with them. And when I told them I was the homeowner, they were surprised that I owned everything. I paid everything. I continue to pay for this place and I make enough money. And the person who left did not have enough money to pay for this place. So there are successful African-American people here. There are successful minorities out here. There's successful Spanish people. There's successful Asians, Native Americans. We are here in America. There are successful white people. We are all Americans at the end of the day. We get to be successful and we get to move up, and we should not be held back for us being able to move up by saying that we are lazy, we are drug dealers, we are trailer park trash. Across the spectrum, we are better than this, and we can all be good.
Full agreement, man. Full agreement.
I got it out.
Tyler, that's a damn good
Thank you
take.
for doing so. Yeah.
That's a damn good take, sir. That's a damn good take.
Mm-hmm.
Kylan, I wanted to pitch a question at you regarding Trump and the stimulus, both inside and outside of the election. There's been, not election, town hall meeting. There's been some pretty interesting things going on regarding Trump's stance on the stimulus. And the question he got tonight was, why not use your office to force a stimulus? And I'm curious what you thought of his response, and if you think there will be a stimulus package before the election.
Great question. So I was very interested in the answer when he decided to spend 3 or 4 minutes railing on Nancy Pelosi, saying that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats don't want to make a deal, when Nancy Pelosi passed the first CARES Act, I believe, in May, and then she passed a slimmed down version, I believe, 2.5 weeks ago. So the Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives has been going above and beyond to pass relief. Now, what we want to talk about is Snappy McTurtle in the Senate, saying that he doesn't want any relief and he doesn't want to spend any money. Now, I definitely found it interesting when the president said that, I'll talk to the Republican Senate and they'll get something done if I say so. He kind of skirted, as far as when she asked, what can you do from an executive perspective to push some stimulus through? And he immediately demurred. So he really didn't have much to offer on that. He's going to have to really hope Nancy Pelosi and Mnuchin can get a deal, and then he can try to muscle McConnell, which I think that he'll be able to do. As far as your question of, do I think there'll be anything before the election? I honestly don't think so. I have a theory, though. I have a theory on why Mitch McConnell doesn't want to do a deal right now. We all know that during a Republican administration, they spend like drunken sailors, blow a hole in the deficit, and then blame it on Democrats. And then when a Democrat comes into office, the first thing they say is we have to tighten our belts for our children and our grandchildren. So my theory is Mitch McConnell doesn't want to pass a bill so close to the election right now to help Americans, because he knows that Trump is almost toast. And once Joe Biden takes his oath of office, he's going to be back into Obama circa 2012 or 2013, saying that we need to worry about our children and grandchildren, and he's not going to pass anything for deficit fears. That's my theory, but honestly, I think it holds up, because why would he not want to do a deal now when he has a Republican president asking for it, than to set the stage for him to say no to any spending in a potential Biden administration? So that's my take on that. So I wish there was a stimulus, because like many of the panelists have spoken to about, there are people that are hurting. All across this country, there are lines of cars for food that are miles long. There are millions of people that are getting evicted, that are homeless. Okay, come December 31st, unemployment insurance is going to expire and more people are going to be thrown off a cliff. People are hurting and nothing is being done, And like I said, I don't blame Nancy Pelosi. She's passed 2 bills. She's trying to negotiate. I blame Snappy McTurtle, and I blame the Republican Senate, who cares only about trying to hold on to their majority. But something needs to be done, because people are hurting, and they're hurting badly, and people don't deserve to be used as political pawns, and they don't deserve to be left twisting in the wind. And I don't care if there's people out there that are voting for Trump that are Trump supporters, because guess what? They're destitute too. They can't feed their family. They're in danger of being homeless. They have kids that are in danger of being homeless. However misguided and dumb, or whatever names we want to call them that I think that they may be, their elders, their children, they don't deserve to be caught up in that because that is of no fault of their own.
I think you're right, KP. And I don't want to repeat the same thing you said because we're on the same page here. But it bothers me to a certain extent that even though we're all in this together, literally, millions of families across the country don't have enough food, can't pay their bills.
Mm-hmm.
People still overlook the fact that Trump does not want to help. He 4 years ago when he ran, one of the things that he said was, I want to take Obamacare out. I want to eliminate that program. And I actually spoke to someone in Tennessee about that. They had lupus. They were benefiting from the Affordable Care Act, and she still voted for Trump. And I asked her why. She's like, because it's Trump. He's a Republican. And it's like, no, you have to put your country before your party. And a lot of people are not doing that, and that's unfortunate because, like you said, there are children that are going to sleep hungry. But guess what? Those children, when they grow up, they're going to be in so much debt because of student loans. No one's thinking about that. There are grandparents who are becoming a financial burden to their kids. Not thinking about that. And there's such a trickle effect that people are overlooking because they're looking at that Republican and Democrat more than this is the effect. And I'm not going to repeat the same thing you said because I'm on the same. I agree 100%. But I think it's a time where we start thinking, country over party for sure. I think we're past to that mindset. We should definitely go back to that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Jules, you were looking to respond here?
Yeah, as to what Kylan was saying about Mitch McConnell, Snappy McTurtle. Yeah. Okay, so what he was saying is that, and I agree, that Mitch McConnell is... Thanks for the music. Mitch McConnell is trying to is looking to hamstring Joe Biden when and if he becomes the president. He can then go through and start blocking voting on Joe Biden's recovery bills and things like that. So I agree with Kylan. This is definitely a measured denial of help for American people by Mitch McConnell as a political move. He's just using all these really, really hurting people as political pawns in order to be able to hamstring Joe Biden once he gets into office, because I'm sure he sees it as fairly inevitable that Trump is losing, and losing pretty badly right now. I think the polls have him averaged out as 10.5 points behind. And so unless there's a pretty fabulously large polling error, it seems fairly likely that Biden's going to take this one. So it's definitely being set up to make Biden suffer once he gets in, because if we win the Senate majority, we're not going to have a huge majority. It might be even. So Kamala Harris would be the deciding vote, and it might be one, and we might be a 51-49 Senate here. And so it's a tenuous majority that we're going to have. And so it's going to be difficult to pass things because the Democratic Party is a little less cohesive than the Republican Party in terms of how they what they believe and their and how they think things should be run, because there's just greater variance of political belief within the Democratic Party.
Basically, you're saying the Democrats have no balls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if they have no balls, but it's just they've had a history of having no balls. But it's hard. It's going to be hard to get things passed with a very small majority either way. And Mitch McConnell is definitely going to do everything he possibly can to obstruct and instruct his Republicans to not vote for anything.
Great take, Jules. Damn good take. And I think we have Joseph coming up next. And Jake has a question.
Yeah, Joseph, you may have seen some discussion about the Supreme Court in the past
Yes.
little while with our current nominee. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wrote that next to the wrong question. Sorry. I've got notes in front of me I'm reading off of. What do you think of the risks of packing the Supreme Court? We've had talks of, if one justice is nominated, potentially having the next president of the alternate side adding yet another just to rebalance. What do you think are the risks of that?
The risks. Well, the risks of the Republican Party stacking the Supreme Court,
or any party.
Any party isn't the party that's been doing it. It's a Republican Party that's been doing it for the last 30 years, and they've won. They're doing it. You know, he's got, how many Supreme Court judges are there? 9. The one before this one, I can't remember. It was last year or the year before.
Merrick Garland
got another. Yeah.
Or Kavanaugh. You probably mean Kavanaugh.
Yes, Kavanaugh. Of course. Yes. Yeah.
But headache immediately.
Either way, you know, the only, you know, as I said, I'm not American, but one of the few things that I do know about the Supreme Court is that it almost never has justice been appointed while the same president was in office when a position became clear. Nearly every single time, as far as I'm aware, you've always waited until the next election. And specifically, that was Ruth Bader Ginsburg's one wish, was to wait until the election to get to for a position to be filled. But the risks of what that is that, well, potentially it's America's a fascist dictatorship by Christmas. That's the risk. Because once you have a majority on the Supreme Court, you can engage in political shenanigans that can take more and more power away from the spirit of the law, the checks and balances that were designed to protect the state. And America is the most stable state in the world. That's why any change takes such a long time to happen there, because no matter what you think about the founding fathers, it's you know, they designed a country that's, the mechanisms are such that it's pretty difficult to for any one person to become a tyrant. But Trump's trying as best as he possibly can to get there. So, you know, the risks of politics are, sorry, what am I trying to say? The risks of letting, it doesn't matter. I'm getting sleepy. That's all I have. That's all I meant to say.
Vlad, you were looking to respond to this particular question as well, or to Joseph?
Yeah, actually, just to the specific question, I think the biggest risk of packing the Supreme Court, as has been discussed, or at least theorized that the Democrats will try to do by expanding it, is that there's nothing to limit, you know, any other party from doing that again. So if Biden gets elected and we expand the Supreme Court to 11, then the next time there's a Republican president, they expand it to 15, and, you know, here we go. So I think that's a problem. And I actually loved Joe Biden's response to the question that was posed regarding stacking the Supreme Court, where he didn't really give an answer, and his answer was, I'm not going to say one way or the other, because that's going to be what we're focusing on tomorrow. That's going to be what the press is focusing on tomorrow. So he almost refused to play the game that the media has been trying to get him to play, by saying, I'm not going to give you the soundbite. I'm not going to do it because I want you to focus on the fact that there's a procedural failure happening right now with the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation. And that's all I've got. So I'm going to yield my time to the next person.
All right. Hannah, we're gonna hop over to you if you're open to a question. I know you watched Biden tonight. my question is going to start about Trump, though. He was asked if he would accept a peaceful transfer of power, and he actually outright said he would if it was an honorable election. Now, a lot of what I've heard tonight was that Biden exemplified honorable and presidential, and with Trump having recently fallen ill, Biden's campaign cut any negative campaigning. So with those things in mind and the inherent issues of voter fraud, say the GOP's fake mailboxes in California, what do you think the chances are that we have an honorable election? And if we don't, do you think we'll have peace?
The honorable election part, I mean, it takes both sides to create that. So I hadn't thought about the, since Trump got sick, that people would be going easier on him, or that the left would go easier on him in that regard. I may not know how to answer that, because like, if I don't really think that Trump is going to give honorable effort in this regard. I just have plenty of doubts and reasons to feel that way. And I think honorable election really depends on what that definition is, and to detail out what the standards should be for having an honest and honorable election is something that should be communicated, and the candidates held to that standard. As it is right now, honorable election is don't cheat on voting, and don't probably bash people's histories that, if you don't know, they're like they're fact. I just don't think that the American people have a clear enough standard of what I don't think it's been communicated what the candidate's standard should be at in order to create that. Not that it shouldn't be obvious. So the percent of it, I think like 55% honorable election.
Does that count? Is that an honorable election? What do you guys think?
I think anything short of 90 doesn't count.
Anna, you were looking to jump in on this question too?
Yeah, I find it ironic that it's Trump who's saying, I won't accept this unless this is honorable. Like, seriously, what have you done that is honorable? Like, who have you respected? Who have you thought of besides yourself and your companies? You're not thinking about the American people. You're not thinking about how the middle class is shrinking. You're not thinking about the lower class. Like, what makes you honorable? You go from, I'm going to grab women by their private areas, to, the Republican Party placing false places where people can drop off their vote. It's crazy. I am a registered voter in North Carolina as a Democrat, and I have filled out my absentee voter request 4 times, and every time it gets declined. I don't know why. I call, no one has a real reason. My form is filled out, my signature's there. 4 times. It's like, are you really being honorable, or are you just saying that you're going to throw a tantrum like a 5-year-old if you don't get what you want? There's a difference. Are you going to be a child who doesn't know any better, or are you going to be the quote unquote successful businessman and accept defeat when you lose, or if you lose?
When you lose.
Yeah. I want to say when, but during the last election, we also thought he was going to lose.
No, you're right. It was just the humor of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I gotta say, with an unexpected change and no real time to plan, since we were watching the debate, this was all very fresh. We all just had the experience of seeing all of that live and combining together. This has been fantastic. So I wanted to thank everybody for your awesome input, your fantastically unique views. And I wanted to pitch the fun topic. We always like to wrap our nights up with something just a little bit on the silly side. And this time we're going to talk about the best celebrity of the past couple of weeks, The Fly. So I'd like to know what you guys thought about the various social appearances The Fly has been making, and if maybe The Fly has a message.
I would have started.
Tyler, please do.
Because the one thing that I thought was amazing by whomever has done the Biden campaign's Twitter, immediately after the debate, Joe Biden's Twitter had something about donate $5 so we can swat out the fly or whatever. This campaign can fly. That's what it was. This campaign can fly. And then they had a fly swatter. If you donated a certain amount, you get a fly swatter with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on it. I thought that was perfect timing. Nobody could have done that better. It was instant, and it was epic.
Excellent. Kylan, what did you think of The Fly? What are your thoughts?
You know, my immediate thought was, if The Fly laid eggs on Mike Pence's head, would The Fly have to carry out all the way to term?
Oh my God. No, the laws haven't changed yet, man.
Oh.
Okay, Jules.
Fly lives matter.
Jules, what did you think about all this?
I mean, it seemed very it seemed perfect, you know. Flies like to land on shit, and they landed right on Pence's head, and the fly then made an appearance at the Supreme Court hearings and landed on Barrett on her shoulder. And it seems right, you know. Maybe Beelzebub is sending his minions from below to show us all what raging piles of shit these people are. That's all I can think.
Vlad.
I think my personal favorite was the fact that the fly sat there for about 5 minutes, and no one seemed, at least Mike Pence didn't seem to care. It's almost as if he's just a robot who doesn't feel things. But I think my favorite thing that's happened since then is the Saturday Night Live skit where they had Kenan Thompson show up as a reincarnation of why am I blanking on his name? Herman Cain. Thank you. Of the reincarnation of Herman Cain, and that was just glorious. And also to touch on Tyler, the fact that Biden's campaign had fly swatters out there shows you that Trump is just the worst businessman in the history of the planet. Because if you can get fly swatters in 5 minutes, you could have had MAGA masks in 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Anna, what did you think? Oh, you're muted.
I think I accidentally left my volume on. I was cracking up. I was just laughing. I swear, I thought you guys could hear me. I was just laughing so hard over here. I agree. You know, flies are attracted to crap, and everything that they say they do comes out of their mouth is just crap. But I wish you guys were here with me. I was laughing. I think I'm crying. That's how hard I'm laughing.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's literally nothing else that I can add.
Gotta put a smile on, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, Joseph, what are your thoughts?
There's one tiny little thing to add on that, but the only thing I could see from there, the little bit of the fly moment that I saw, this, now I don't mean to be insulting, but to me, that was a particularly American moment.
It's
The
true.
idea that the potential vice president, well, the current vice president of the country, thinks that ignoring a fly crawling over his face is manly and the right thing to do on live national television. The fact that that is the train of thought that we're operating at, that's what he thought was the right thing to do, because what if he swats a fly away, it looks weak. It's weak, and weak is feminine, and we all know what that means. You know, it's like you know, well, what can I say? Because it's so obvious. It's like, it's the, you know, not even, I wanted to say it's like the thing that jocks at university would do, but that's insulting to jocks. You know, it's saying, well, you know, the idea that ignoring the little discomforts and the little tiny bits, and it's like, bitch, it's a fly. If it's on your face, why would you let something walk all over your face?
I don't think zombies wave them off.
Yeah, I don't fucking know. Anyway, that's the only thing I had to say.
Hannah, you've been
That's
really
the
patient
outsider's
there.
perspective.
What were your thoughts on all the flies' appearances?
Well, what first came to mind was the bird that landed on the podium for Bernie Sanders, and just the symbolism and all of that. That there's like a bird graced the presence of Bernie Sanders and all of the people there, and for Pence it was a fly on his head that nobody bothered to say, "Dude, you have a fly on your head." You know, it's just a completely different reaction experience. It just felt kind of warm to think about that.
So I was sitting watching the debate with Hannah, and I went from bored to in tears the second the fly landed. And my response was pretty similar when it happened to Barrett, but I think all of that said, my favorite bit is that there's been a pretty big social push to have Jeff Goldblum play that fly in an SNL skit. If you don't know, Jeff Goldblum played the Fly in the 1980s horror movie, and I think that is just genius, absolute genius.
Oh, hell yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. This has been a lot of fun, and I went into it with a legit headache. So thank you guys for being so fantastic. Guys, this is our 14th episode. That's 28 weeks. We've been having a lot of fun doing this. If you like what we do, if you like watching and participating, we love getting those comments. Please like and subscribe. I don't know what buttons are actually on Facebook because I'm bad at that stuff, but yeah, hit the bell button or follow us or whatever it is. We do have a couple other podcasts coming up. You can check them out on our calendar. I don't offhand remember the date for the Electoral College one. Does anyone remember offhand?
Monday.
Next Monday. Oh, wow. That one's coming up real soon. So be ready. We've got an excellent one on the state of the election, or the crumbling state of the election. Anyway, we'd love to see you there. So jump on in. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.